Hello, everyone. I am Peter Freer. I am founder and CEO at Play Attention, who's sponsoring this webinar today. And the webinar today is going to be about perfectionism and its relationship to procrastination. It's the loop we live in. And we'll also talk about ADHD and overthinking and getting unstuck. The agenda today is to discuss exactly what is this perfectionism procrastination loop. And if any of you here have at any time had to start a project, it could be something very simple, and you really have to get started, and then all of a sudden you find yourself on YouTube uh, analyzing in a video whether ancient Romans used fidget toys, then you belong here. We want to know why this actually happens, why ADHD brains struggle with procrastination, tips to escape the perfectionism procrastination trap, and then how Play Attention can help. I actually started Play Attention years ago. This is our 31st year. And I started it after 10 years prior to that of research and development. But we're here for a good reason because we help people who have these type of problems. And I think today, when we discuss this, I want to give you two really, really good tips up front. Number one is the best way to participate today and to learn about what the perfectionism procrastination loop is for you to have as little distraction as possible. Attention is the stuff that makes up life. It is the glue that holds us all together, holds us as in relationships, as a society, and it holds our brain's development, healthy development. It all centers around attention. So those things that distract you, this is tip one, those things that distract you right now should be removed. We should turn off the TV, anything that's distracting on your phone, like messaging or your calls coming in, if you're watching me on your phone. Those are good things. That's tip number one. Number two is, and this is really pertinent, relevant to these times, we often, since COVID and everything else that's going on in the world today, feel unsettled and that we're not in control of anything. But I can tell you that we have ways to manage our brains. We can. You can be successful. You can make personal changes. And that's the nature, the goal of today's webinar is to give you tools that will help you do that. I hope that makes sense. And you know, this is a great quote from John Steinbeck. And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. Just ponder that. I'm going to address that at the end of the webinar, and you'll see how significant a message that actually is. Notice here we have perfectionism on one side, procrastination on the other. What is this loop that we tend to live in? Right? And if you would, let's do a thought experiment. Imagine this with me, that you have a project that is due soon, whether it's for work, maybe it's a home project, maybe it's just cleaning the house. Maybe you're at school at university and you have a project that's due, upcoming. And in that, you start trying to formulate how you're going to do this, how it's going to be so perfect and so good. And as you do that, time ticks by, the deadline is approaching, and you still haven't started. So your anxiety level starts to increase. And the closer that date, the deadline is, the greater our frustration and our anxiety tend to mount. So then, after all of that thought about doing it and how it's going to be perfect and how I'm going to make it perfect, I finally have to turn out a product, and I turn out the product. And it generally is never perfect. And I look at it, and internally, I say, wow, that was really a mess. But if I had just started earlier, I could have I could have made it perfect. And then we just repeat the cycle. Does that make sense to anyone here? Does anyone here? So raise your hand if that makes sense, because then I know that you understand exactly what we're talking about here. That is the perfectionism procrastination loop. You know, we have a lot of people here. A lot of hands just went up. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And but even though we do this, the I think the sadly humorous part of it is we keep doing it. And this is what, again, as I said earlier, you can make change. You can make change. And the nature and goal of this webinar is to help you do that. So we start by overthinking it, right? This is the first part of it. I need to do this perfectly or else it's not worth doing. Now, many of you, if you have ADHD and you understand this, the apple typically um, does not fall far from the tree genetically. So if you have a child that you try to do homework with, and the child starts the homework process and filling in something on paper, or trying to write on paper, something like that, and they take a look at it, and it's not perfect. Have you ever seen them try to just totally erase it or pick it up and crumple it and throw it out and just say, I'll just start it all over again? So, a 20-minute homework assignment takes 2 hours on a fight to even try to get through it. Is anyone familiar with this at home? Maybe with your child, and you see that that's happened, and maybe it happens to you as well. So we have this procrastination that steps in part two. I'll just wait until I have the perfect plan. I am going to overthink and then get that perfect plan. But first, let me reorganize my sock drawer. Now, at this point, since this is just a thought experiment, it's funny. We can laugh about it now, but is that the state of our reality? Is that what we do? Right? I just will wait until I have the perfect plan. But first, I'll reorganize my sock drawer, or I'll reorganize my pantry, something like that. We do that, right? And at any point this resonates with you, feel free to raise your hand. We wait to the last minute. And Stacy says, do you have a camera in my house? It's amazing how common it is among all of us here. I mean, we have a congregation here that says, oh, this makes perfect sense. This is the way I live. In step three, we have last minute panic because we put it off, but we know we have to get it done. So we wait until the last minute, right? And oh no, the deadline is tomorrow. Why did I wait so long? But I'm going to make it perfect. Well, then we started on it, and then we are muttering to ourselves the entire time. If I had just started sooner, I could have done so much better. And then step five is, just go ahead and repeat this. The next time this happens, I turn it in, and I'm disgusted with myself. And then, this is all going to repeat itself. Michael says, this is the story of my life since I was in the third grade. And that was 50 years ago. It's an amazing thing because it starts it starts early, and then we don't know how to break the cycle. So 30 years later, you still have it. So a lot of questions are coming in, and if you could, I'm going to have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So save your questions for the end, and then we'll address them at the end of the webinar so I can keep a flow going. But your questions are important, and I will do my best to answer them. But let's get them at post them at the end of the conference, and we'll address them. So why the heck does this happen? Right? Remember, the goal of this today is that you are empowered. I'm going to empower you to understand what is happening. So we've just explained, all of us are here going, I understand, I identify with this. But if we understand the basis for it, why it happens, then I think we can be empowered to make change. Because remember, that's our goal. We understand we can make change. I need tips and strategies and tools to help me do it. And that's what all of this is about. So why? Why does it happen? Well, it's because of this thing called executive function. Now, executive function, if you're not familiar, is a series of cognitive skills that we use in our brains. Typically, we say they are governed in the frontal lobes of the brain. It manages things like planning, prioritization. Does that sound familiar where we get stuck in the procrastination, perfectionism loop in planning and organization? Task initiation as well, right? That is a skill. It's a cognitive skill. All right. Working memory. You notice that big piece of the pie is held up here. Working memory means holding steps in my mind and being able to manipulate those steps. In other words, being able to plan and organize, figuring out where to begin. That's all working memory. That's a cognitive skill. And if the task feels too big, then the brain just says, let's think about this some more, which turns into not doing it at all, which causes more anxiety, right? There is this chain you can see. I put it off, I procrastinate, I get frustrated, I get anxious, and it builds into, I'm just not going to do it. I'll just not do it. And then you have a failure point in your life. This also happens where you don't turn it in, and your employer looks at you and goes, what is wrong with you? I told you 3 weeks ago this had to be in. Or you feel that way internally without even your employer saying anything to you. Internally, you feel, I am a failure. So if this is, you are beginning to understand, all of these skills essentially help us complete these things. But we are all born tabula rasa. If you haven't heard that term before, it's Latin for blank slate. In ancient Rome, where they spoke Latin, they had wax tablets. And the wax tablets they would scribble notes on, right? But it's an erasable tablet. So once I got through reading my notes, I just heated the wax tablet up and the tablet became blank again. Now, we are all born as blank slates. We all are born and we don't all have executive function. It is developed over time. And we don't have it generally. It is learned. These skills are learned. They're not innate. They are learned. And so with that, sometimes we have weak executive function. Sometimes we have cognitive skills that just aren't present, right? They just don't happen for us for some reason or the other. In ADHD, this is really a fundamental part of ADHD. My executive function is quite weak in certain areas. So once we understand this, we can now start to take control of it. Remember, the goal of this webinar is to empower you to understand what is going on so that we can be able to make changes individually. And I'm getting a few requests for the webinar. The webinar is being recorded. So within a day or so, we'll send you a link so you can review it so that the tips and strategies that are in here, you'll have so that you can review them again. We oftentimes have a fear of imperfection. Do you see this all bold? We are dealing in terms of all or nothing. If it's not amazing, it's terrible. I am not going to settle for it. And this relates back to your early childhood, where if it wasn't perfect at that point, you crumpled up, threw it out, or you pitched a fit, or you did both. So if that happens, then you try to avoid it, which leads into procrastination because it makes me feel uncomfortable. It gets me anxious. I am frustrated. But that fear also says, if I don't have to try, if I don't try, I don't have to fail. So we end up doing nothing, getting stuck in neutral. Now, are there any people here who understand that? Feel like I am stuck? I am just stuck in neutral. I'm really glad that you're brave enough to, no one else can see it except for me, but it's an amazing thing when you can actually say, oh, that is me. I totally identify with that. That is the majority of us here that are saying that. Another element that causes this is time blindness. And I must admit, my wife tells me that I am time blind. My famous saying is, this shouldn't take long. If I have a project to do and I'm trying to enlist her help, I'll say it shouldn't take long. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. But I'm totally time blind. I totally underestimate those things. But if you're suffering it and you have ADHD, you struggle with future thinking. And I've got to tell you, people say you can't time travel. ADHD people are some of the best time travelers in the world. And you may identify with this as I disclose it to you, as I describe it to you. We deal in future thinking, right? We deal with not the present, not being mindful and in the present. Right now, the most important time of our life is the present. But we either think from the past and we think of the past and things that we regret. So we live 1/3 of our life there. And then 1/3, maybe more for ADHD brains, is living in the future. We underestimate how long things are going to take. We'll assume we'll plenty of time later in that future that's out there, right? Or the future scares us, right? When we're procrastinating and we start thinking about that project that's not done, it scares us. We have the fear that I just talked about. All right. And then when it's time to do it, it's crunch time. And then I am in full-fledged panic. Make sense? Now, this is an interesting one. This is more recent that people keep talking about dopamine seeking behavior and task avoidance. ADHD brains do crave stimulation. So instead of starting a boring task, we'll distract ourselves by doing something more engaging like TikTok or YouTube videos or anything that doesn't allow me to start that task that I know I have to. So I find other things to distract myself. I often hear people say, I'll start in 5 minutes, but at first, let me check one thing online. I'll start in 5 minutes. Let me check my email up first. So avoiding that hard task gives you that dopamine pop, and it gives you instant relief. but you're still avoiding, right? Remember, again, our goal is to know how our brains work, because if we know how they work, we can hack them, we can trick them into working for us instead of working against us. That's why we're kind of citing all of these things that get in our way, that inhibit us from being functioning really well, having great relationships, and getting things done. Now, rejection sensitivity, often called RSD. Has anyone here heard of RSD? Rejection sensitivity dysphoria? Okay. And you may suffer it yourself. I am afraid of being rejected. And so I don't, even though I feel like I've really tried hard, I feel that I can't be good enough. So I'm so scared of it being rejected. I just avoid everything. I won't even go out. Friends ask me out to dinner, and then my mind starts to get in that loop. I'm not perfect. They're going to see that I'm not perfect. I, I'm not good at relationships. I don't want to even do this. I'm not going to do it. I don't even go out. And so all weekend long, you stay in your pajamas and you stay home. So this is that all or nothing thinking. If it can't be perfect, I'm not going to start it. Why start it? I'm just going to subject myself to failure. This is another problem. This is wrong thinking, and this gets us into deep trouble. All right? So super important to start to identify these things within yourself, understand that it is not a permanent problem. These are things that we can change, we can manage. Now, am I confused by too many choices? How many people here, when you're trying to plan things out, just have this great sense of overwhelm? Isn't that crazy? No, crazy may not be the right word. Isn't that frustrating that we feel that if I have too many choices, I just will do nothing, right? It's too much for me. And this leads to a phrase my father used to talk to me about at university. He said, this is the problem of professors. You know, they analyze so much, it, it leads to a paralysis. Analysis paralysis. Our brains get overwhelmed by too many choices, too many things trying to grab our attention, and it leads to analysis paralysis. The more decisions we have to make, harder it becomes to start. And when we're unsure of what to do first, we do. Everybody could say it with me. I wish I could hear you, but you're saying if we're unsure what to do first, we do nothing. Exactly. Nothing is the key answer there. Everybody's kind of saying, well, paralysis is a huge problem for me. All right, let's focus on tips on how to escape this, right? Now we have the foundation. We understand what is happening. Now that we have that, let's go ahead into how to not stumble into this all the time, not let it inhibit our growth, not let it interfere with our relationships, make me feel positive about myself. So the first tip is to trick your brain into starting, right? By using the 5-minute rule. Now, this is a very simple rule, right? Since starting is the most difficult thing for all of us, remember that's an executive function, right? Initiate task initiation. Let's make it really easy and simple. So the 5-minute rule, just do 5 minutes. So if I have this huge project, instead of feeling like it's going to be boring, I start, but I'm only going to work on it for 5 minutes. So I'm only going to do a piece that isn't entirely within my reach, within my capability. If I if I can do it for just 5 minutes, and maybe for some of you, maybe it's 2 minutes. Try for five first. If it doesn't work, try for two. But it tells your brain, I only have to do this for 5 minutes. I'm good. I can do that. Then you can go do something else, and you come back and you do another 5 minutes, and you'll see the pieces come together. All right. So once you start, momentum kicks in, and suddenly you're working without realizing it. But that's the first hack, is the 5 minute rule. You'll be surprised. It's like running long distance. You can't just get out and run long distance. You have to run short periods, and eventually they add up, and you're able to run longer and longer. Same thing with work. Start short. Do something that'll make you understand that you can get going, and it's very simple to do. But it's going to end, and then come back. Pro tip: set a 5 minute timer. So the timer should be perhaps an integral part of your routine. You set that 5 minute timer, and when it dings, I stop. No pressure. If I feel like continuing, go for it. But set a time where you can stop and you can return later. Is that making sense? Timers are great. As a matter of fact, there's even more on timers in this tip list here. So one of the first thing is you're going to set an ugly draft. All right. So the ugly draft goal means that perfectionism tells us that if it's not amazing, it's not worth doing. So that's wrong. Get this messy, imperfect version first. And this is really key. So when we are, setting this as our goal, we are accepting that first pass is going to be messy. That's okay. You have to have that set in your mind to get this goal to work. The first draft is going to be ugly and messy, but that's okay. That's part of this process so that I can continue to get better at it. So instead of aiming for perfect right off the bat, you're going to give yourself permission to do an ugly draft. Once it's on paper, then it's much easier to tweak it later, because you'll see, oh, that's not good. I've got to change that. And that's fine. But be accepting of an ugly first pass at it. Set a 5 minute timer and tell yourself, when it dings, I can stop or I can keep going, no pressure. Right? Again, we're lowering anxiety. We're lowering frustration because I can get this done in 5 minutes. No pressure. Body doubling and accountability. Why do you get more done when someone's watching? Ever notice how it's easier to get things done when someone else is around? That's body doubling. So ADHD brains focus better when there's external accountability. In other words, that body double you have actually holds you accountable. Where you have a difficult time holding yourself accountable, having someone with you helps you with that. They're a partner that actually helps you. So you can find an accountability partner, a friend, a coach, coworker, even a virtual group. And you all have a great working relationship. And they help you. Right? It's very, very simple. It's easy enough to do. You have to accept it as a tool in your toolbox. Les says, my boss is actually my body double. I'm very lucky. And you are. If your boss has that kind of keen sense to help you with what you need, you bet. You bet. You are super, super lucky, but it's smart of you, Les, to take advantage of that and use it as a tool that helps you out. There are apps and communities where you can join live virtual work sessions with other ADHDers. This is super important. If you're up for it, join one of those, put one of those apps on your phone or your tablet or your computer and join the community. A lot of people will do that. And some people are saying, well, my friend helps me with it. Your friends are ideal as long as they don't fold. You go, oh, I don't need you today. I'm going to tough it out. Make certain that they hold steady and go, no, the plan was, this is what we're going to do together. We stay with it. I'm going to help. All right. No procrastination. Body doubling is a good idea. Beat time blindness and overwhelm. If time blindness makes future deadlines feel fake, we need to make them real. So this is a Pomodoro meaning tomato in Italian. So the Pomodoro here is a timer also, a kitchen timer. It's a famous visual timer. And you can either get them electronically on your laptop, tablet, or telephone, or you can have a physical one that you get on Amazon or Walmart or something like that. And you have it there and set the time. Because when you actually see time pass, it helps you remain in the now and helps you focus. Right? So you have sprints. Remember, I said we're not running marathon. We're going to build up to working longer time, but we have to run our sprints before we get there. And this helps you with those sprints. Mini deadlines. Now, setting calendar alerts and making deadlines visual. This is super important. If you color code them, by the way, it sometimes will help you even more. But the tip here is to make them visual where you're going to see them on a daily basis. Or if you're in a work zone that you have set for yourself, which is even better, you have your own personal workspace, have your calendar up with the deadlines on it, and you make note of them. And it doesn't hurt to set reminders on your personal calendar on your computer, pop up going, deadlines tomorrow, deadlines in 2 hours, because you have a reminder, and you can also color code those as well. So these are great tools for you to use, again, so that you feel like I'm in control, I have this down, I can do it. The 80% rule. Good enough is good enough. If you aim for 100% perfection, you'll never finish. Human beings are not perfect. Their work products are not perfect. Instead, you can stop at 80% because 80% done is better than 0% perfect. I love that sentence. I can stop at 80% because 80% done is better than 0% perfect. Absorb that. Let it resonate inside. If you get 80% done, it's better than 0% perfect. And you're more likely to keep your job longer. Most of the time, extra effort makes something perfect isn't even noticeable to others. Right? Maybe you do this with your hair. I'm not going out till I have my hair perfectly in place the way I like it. And even though it doesn't form perfectly, you tinker with it more. And after a while, you just go, the heck with this. And you sometimes go out, or you just say, you're afraid now to go out, you're anxious, and you don't go out at all. Right? This is very common among people. So challenge yourself and try to follow the 80% rule. If I'm good for 80% and it's done, it's better than 0% done. It's a great rule. And there are people saying, well, Tisha said, it's this one is hard. It is a hard one, but it is doable. Someone else just said, That's that extra final touch that I try to give it that just causes the most anxiety within me. And I totally understand that. I really do. Again, people are asking if the slides will be available. The whole webinar will be available probably sometime tomorrow once it is uh, recorded fully, and you'll be sent a link to the webinar where you can review it. All right. So pro tip, 80/20. If you feel the urge to keep perfecting after everything is said and done, ask yourself, will this extra 20% really make the difference? Because as you just heard, that we just had someone say that extra little bit that I try to do causes the most extreme anxiety in my mind. And that's hard to bear. And that's why things don't get done. Will it really make a difference? Will anyone really notice it? Most likely not. You will, but the people who you're directing the project to, they're not. So don't take it so hard. Don't make it so hard on yourself. 80% done is really good compared to 0%, nothing done. This is a great tip, by the way. If I pair boring tasks with enjoyable ones, the temptation bundle, what if I told you that you could make your chores more fun by pairing them with things you love? So you pair this boring task with something that you really enjoy. So if you have to do the dishes, you can pair it. Put your buds in and listen to a podcast or an audible book or something you enjoy. Mozart, if you enjoy it. But it makes that time go by so much more fast and without anxiety or procrastination. Watch your favorite TV show while you're on a treadmill. And I've got to tell you, I even use this. I go down to the gym and I have one in my home and I have a TV in front of me and I will put on Reacher or I'll put on some exciting show while I'm on the elliptical or I'm on the bike and my mind is in the show. My body's going through all the labor it has to, but in performing all the labor it has to, and I'm getting a workout, but I'm enjoying it. Save a special snack for when you're working on something tedious. So remember our 5-minute rule? Let's break that down to 5 minutes. Maybe I get a little treat of something I like. My wife does not like me bringing home yogurt-covered pretzels because those things are highly addicting. They're delicious. So maybe when I get through that 5-minute task, I give myself a couple of those pretzels. I don't want to eat the whole bin. I don't want to eat the whole plastic container of yogurt-covered pretzels, but I will treat myself to them. A few. Make a list of fun things you can pair with boring tasks and try different combos, right? This is something really good. It's a really good start, and it's enjoyable. Here are the fun things I like to do. Let's pair them with this. Let's pair them with that. It's a really great and fun way to do it. And you can actually ask your body double to help you make that list and have fun with them while you're doing it. Make productivity fun and rewarding. Remember, our ADHD brains love dopamine. If a task is boring, we need to make it fun. So you can gamify tasks with challenges and rewards. Now, this works for adults as well as children. Turn your tasks into a game, right? Race the clock, earn the points, or challenge yourself. Again, you can do this. It's simple to do. Gamify it. Give yourself a reward after finishing something, even small things. I mentioned that previously, like yogurt-covered pretzels. Try productivity bingo, where you check off a small wins throughout your day, and maybe you give yourself a reward if you get so many points out of that. Again, rewards are not bad things. Just don't want to overdo them and make them really work for you, right? Make them work for you. Use habit tracking apps that give you points and streaks and prizes, right? There are apps that do this, and they will help you set your goals and set rewards for those. And I think you can find them for free on the web. You set up, and we even use that in play attention when people are using play attention to increase cognitive skills and increase their executive function, which is everything we're talking about today. We have a point system in there where you can reward yourself. You set the points up, and then you absolutely can pay yourself off for doing those things so that you don't procrastinate. So this is really important. Executive function to beat the perfectionism procrastination loop. This is one of the things I think I mentioned previously. It's the reason I even developed play attention in the first place, is so that people could learn the skills they needed and have them internally whenever they needed them. This is super, super important. And remember that executive function was that slide that came up. It's kind of a pie chart. Task initiation, right? It's not procrastinating. Task initiation is an executive function, a cognitive skill that forms executive function. Organizing and planning. This is part of that, right? Having to learn all of this. Super, super important. And play attention is the only program available that integrates real-time feedback. So imagine controlling the computer by that little armband the woman has on right here. She controls the games by mind alone. These are brain-enabled games, so they are far different than anything you've ever seen that allows you to control the apps by your attention alone. And they teach you planning and organization. They teach you task initiation and task completion, things like that. There are many of them in there. Everything from social skills, motor skills, impulse control, behavior shaping, and so much more. Task initiation, just improving your attention, working memory, short-term memory, spatial memory. It's all in play attention. You remember I told you this at the very beginning of the webinar, the John Steinbeck saying up front is what he wrote now is, now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. And let's put that in perspective now. John Steinbeck was not perfect. He was one of America's best writers. Was he perfect? No. Was he good to great? Depends on who you ask. But definitely good. Sometimes great. Now, you don't have to be perfect because perfect is an illusion. If you walk away from anything from today's webinar, what we have to say initially is that perfection is an illusion that exists up here. There is no reality to it. You cannot be perfect. The work that you create will not be perfect. But it can be good, and at times can be great. And so if you strive to be in the illusion, then you will never be happy, and you will not experience the joy in life that happens when you are good. You are human, and your heart is filled with joy. This is huge. If you actually come face to face with this, and you see that perfectionism is an illusion, and it is, and you have grasped at it for 30 plus years, as some of the folks here have said, and you've never attained it. And the reason you cannot attain it is because it is an illusion that you have formed in your brain. With that in mind, if you continue to strive for it without making change, then you will never, ever find the joy that is in this life. It's very difficult. We will find frustration, fear, anxiety, and stress. And I know that you're here because you're tired of it. Can I get a hand up? Are you tired of it? Has this made sense? Are you just tired of living like that? Excellent. It's not attainable, right? You can chase it. And then a lot of Chip says, well, we could chase it. Sure, you've chased it all your life. It's an illusion. You can chase a shadow. But if you strive to be very good or excellent, you can do those things. You can. But perfection, it's an illusion. And it's not. It's definitely not real. So I hope you understand that we have done this webinar, you've attended it, so that you understand that you now have tools that can help you shape your brain and your life, right? So next steps, one of the things that you can do, and if you want to use a tool like Play Attention, you can take the ADHD test that's on our website. If you want to take the ADHD test, and this will tell us a lot about you, so we could actually form a program that is specified for your needs. You can just put in ADHD test or test, and someone will send you a link so that you can take the test. It's free, it's online. And it will tell you a lot about yourself and what we could do to create a custom tailored program to increase your executive function. Again, if you want that, just type in test. You can get a free one-to-one consultation to see if this is a right fit for you, so that you have a variety of tools that you could use in the Play Attention program. You can come to our next Play Attention webinar. So if you want a consultation, by the way, type in consultation and someone will contact you regarding consultation. And then we have another Play Attention webinar coming up, so you can actually see it in action and see how these things can help you to use this as a tool in the toolbox so that you can absolutely change your life. So if you want to come to the webinar to actually see it in person, then just go ahead and type in webinar. Someone will send you a link to the webinar. And then this I really wanted to tell you about number 4 here. Don't miss out on our Spring Focus Bootcamp for adults. If you're new to Play Attention, we are running a bundle called the Spring Focus Bootcamp. In that, you're going to get extra activities. You're going to get daily tips and strategies emailed to you during the boot camp. You're going to be able to get the Play Attention system with a variety of extra licenses, so that if you have people in your family you really want to help as well as yourself, you can get extra licenses so that you can all work together to do it. And you have extra modules that will be in this as well. So that is a huge benefit to everyone here, the Spring Focus Bootcamp with Play Attention. So if you want to know more about that, put in Bootcamp and we'll send you information or have someone contact you about that. So again, all you need to do is type in test, consultation, webinar, focus, or all of these, any of them that you want, just let us know. We'd be happy to help you with that as well. So that the idea was, let's understand what this is and let us make changes. Because as I said initially, attention is what glues our life together. It's the glue that holds our life together. And if we're stuck in procrastination, we're stuck in fear, we're stuck in anxiety, it is very, very difficult for us to move forward. If you're tired of being stuck in neutral, it's time to make a change and, begin a call to action. So thank you so much again. It's been a real pleasure and a great event. Take care, and we'll love to talk to you and see you in the near future.